that brought up something else that I wanted to share as it relates to intuition when you're building your intuition. Is that I think a lot of times what happens is people at the gate, like you said, they want to be, the pro, the person that's been practicing this for a long time. And especially they ask like really big things like, oh, should I invest in this whatever? Or should I buy this house? Or should I quit my job? Higher self, should I quit my job? Oh, I didn't get anything. It's not answering. The thing is like, sometimes we just got to start with like the silly questions, right? The questions that don't matter anything. Like, do I wear this? Better to wear the pink shirt or the black shirt, right? And you just build up that, I did that. Like you build up that muscle.
Welcome to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner, a show about shifting our individual and collective beliefs on what is possible for the future of humanity. As our understanding of how our reality continues to shift, we are at a point of reunification between science and spirituality. What does the world look like when we break free from the generational trauma that has kept most humans playing small for thousands of years and step into our full power as the co-creators of this reality? I always ask that you keep an open mind with this podcast. Ask yourself what resonates with my truth at this time and what does not. Respect your intuition, but see if you can get through the whole show because there might be that little nugget buried deep in the conversation that unlocks something for you. Welcome back to Changing the Channel. I am joined today by a beautiful sister, Jeni Holla. Her journey underwent a dramatic shift from being a high-earning sales career and softball Hall of Famer to embracing her true calling as a transformative energy healer, Akashic Records guide, and soul activator. Over 2 years ago, she and her husband traded their conventional lifestyle for nomadic existence. This experience led to healing and releasing of societal conditioning, unveiling her innate affinity for spirituality, soul activations, and the Akashic Records. So welcome, Jeni Holla, the Akashic Nomad.
Yes, you like that bio that was assisted by ChatGPT with all those like really beautiful ways of putting it together. I was like, ChatGPT, help me make this bio even better.
Yeah, ChatGPT is great. I use them all the time.
Yes, totally. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and to go deeper and to share more about the Akashic Records and really my intention is to help crack people open in places that they maybe didn't realize they weren't cracked open in, and just really help shine a light on what else is possible. And then it's obviously up to the listener to decide, do they want to continue going down this path or that path or whatever, because you could always say, nope, none of that resonates. She's not my person. I'm going to listen to another guest. And that's fine too.
Yeah. And that's what I always, come into this with an open mind, but make sure that, what resonates with you, follow that. What doesn't resonate with you, leave it here and just allow it to be. And it's not necessarily for you, or it could be for somebody else. So thanks for kind of clearing that up. So Give us a little background. How did you become the Akashic Nomad?
Well, let's just say that I've spent the majority of my life, like many other people in this world, running and chasing like accolades and the money and success in a corporate career. My path was very corporate, and I was also, as you heard in the bio, I played sports all growing up, was a good athlete, and was inducted into multiple Hall of Fames. Like, I got A's, I only got 1 B in college, I got a full ride. I came out of school and got a sales job that paid for my car, and, I made 6 figures pretty soon, and I bought my house when I was like 23. Like, I have a lot of those things, and I always knew there was more for me. I always knew. And I felt like the more for me was like, oh, I'm going to go get this new job, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to go over there. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and where I struggled with that was trusting myself, right? I never thought my content was good enough. I didn't really believe in it. And especially when I was like in my early 20s, I wrote a book and I was doing the speaker, author, coach thing. And I was very influenced by other people, right? Like I was looking for people to give me that external validation. And when I didn't have it, like I did in my sales job or like in my athletic career where there was lots of like pats on the back, I just didn't know what to do with that. And so I really struggled a lot entrepreneurially, although on the outside it looked like I had it all together because I know how to do that, right? Like I know how to put on the face for my sales career. And my journey really led me. I've always been into spirituality, and I never thought I would be the person on the other side of the table. Like I've had readings, I've had angel readings, and I've worked with an intuitive coach, and I've done those things, but I never thought I'd be the person on the other side of the table. And so through a series of events, I was led to the Akashic Records, which is funny because what led me there was an author had a book called Waking Up in 5D by Maureen St. Germain. And I was learning about this concept, and I was at a Barnes and Noble, like very public, very mainstream place. And I was not expecting, I know they have spiritual stuff, but I was not expecting to see something on like 5D. And it was forward facing. It wasn't even just a spine book, it was a forward facing book. And so I picked up that book and I ended up reading all of that author's books. And the last one to read was Opening the Akashic Records. And I thought, I don't need that. That's not for me. Well, somehow I ended up buying it and ended up going through the book. It changed a lot for me. It shifted a lot for me. And I went through the certification and realized that I was actually pretty good at this. Like I didn't realize that I had these gifts because I just never saw myself that way. And things opened up for me really quickly. And so ever since fully embracing the Akashic Nomad, which is really like a fun branding thing, I do Akashic Records work and I work with the Akashic Records. And then I'm a nomad. I live full time on the road, traveling. It's been over 2.5 years and we travel around the state. So I just thought it'd be fun to put those together because it's like a play on two things that are really major in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you feeling a little bit stuck? Like you've been doing the work, but you're just not sure what the next steps are? Right now, I'm offering coaching through meditation and intuition to tap into your soul to get the hints about where your life is heading towards. What are the next steps for you? So if you're interested, check out the show notes and set up a time to just check. I've got a free 30-minute discovery call that you can sign up for. I look forward to hearing from you. And please feel free to reach out. I love that. It started in a Barnes and Noble. I mean, not started, but like, you know, you always hear about the spiritual journey. They're in a tiny little used bookstore in the forbidden part of town in some crazy small place in Southern Europe. And that's where they found this mysterious book that changed their life. And, you were in Barnes and Noble,
Right.
It's kind of funny there.
Well, and it's interesting too, because of course, when I can look back, even to maybe, 5-10 years ago, because traveling the United States as a sales professional, I would go to different like spiritual meetup groups. And this one lady had a spiritual meetup group at our house in Dallas, Texas. And she had somebody there who was teaching people how to open the Akashic Records. And at the time, I was super newbie in my experience. So like a lot of things were kind of weird to me, but I was like open to them. So when this lady was like, I think it was some kind of a meditation that took us in, and I was like, I don't know what all this is. Like I thought it was cool, but I thought it was weird at the same time. And I booked a reading with her, and it just was what it was. It was like, oh, I had a reading. That was cool. I don't know. She told me some stuff because I was so new. I didn't really know how to put things together. So I'm curious, as we remember certain things, like I'll be curious what else I remember that is connected to that. Cause obviously I was introduced to the records a long time ago, but like nothing really, it's almost like it was seeded and then here I am, but I don't see any other like pieces yet of how it like connects. So
yeah, those pieces will come in. They always do. It is funny to see how the mind kind of strings that all together once you get to that end point, it's like, oh, well, this led to this, led to this, led to this. And it's kind of fun to watch and see. So yeah, let's maybe tune in a little bit. Let's tune into the Akashic Records. Let's see what the record keepers, maybe have to share right now that might be pertinent for humanity, for, this collective shift in consciousness that we're experiencing.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a moment and I'm going to drop in, and you're going to hear me say some words, like a short little prayer. And then I might be silent a few moments, and then I'll tune in and see what they have to say. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. And this is actually, I'm going to say this. I learned a different prayer from Marie St. Germain, And because I'm going to be training the Akashic Records to other people, I've been playing with different prayers to see like how I feel or how they access and whatnot. And so this one is actually by Laura Coe. Well, I don't know if she wrote it. She probably channeled it, but it's called The Key. So you guys could find this. She's got this. You could totally look this up online. So it's called The Key. And I really like it. Like, I love the way it makes me feel. And so we open ourselves to the light. And with this light, we open ourselves to our truth. And with this light, we open ourselves to our soul's purpose. And with this light, we open ourselves to be guided towards our highest good and the highest good of those we love. And so, Jeni is given the truth to best serve her on our healing journey into the love and acceptance that is most beneficial for her in this moment. And with this light and guidance, we unlock the energy field of Jeni to receive the record of her soul. So I will say this, and then I will drop in to see what they have to say. I use my record for this because it's the closest connection I have. And through my record, a lot of the messages will come for the collective. I have opened the records for the collective before, and it's a bit too much for me. So
It's a lot of energy.
It's easier this way. So let me see what the record keepers want to share that's in the highest and best good now. We like to start off by sharing that there is, in fact, a lot of turmoil happening both in the world from a physical perspective, as well as in a lot of inner worlds. There's a lot of turmoil in the inner worlds of so many, we will say beings. There's a lot of turmoil in many of you. And yes, while there is turmoil on the outside, does not mean that there has to be turmoil on the inside. It is very important for each one of you to really to ground and to be able to hold space and hold presence and hold peace and come into this place of inner peace on the inside so that you can more clearly see and interpret and understand and hold space on the outside for what is unfolding. The thing that we invite many of you today to do is to pause and to turn off what is happening in the outside world, to take a moment, to take a break from being pulled into the energies of what is happening in the outside world, both on the global scale as well as in your own day-to-day life and how things are unfolding. And as you are able to take a moment and take a pause to pull away from those energies, it is really important for each one of us, each one of you, each one of us to connect even deeper with our own energies, with your own energy, to be able to really feel what that feels like. Just you, all you, without the outside influence, without the outside limitations, without the outside experiences, without the outside influences, to be able to be and experience what it's like to be your own clear channel, to really, really deeply understand what that is. Now, for some of you, you are going to be able to really deeply resonate with this message and take it and integrate it into your life very quickly. There are others of you who will hear this message and there will be a seed planted because some people won't fully understand what that means and how to fully integrate it. We invite you to really trust the process and to allow yourself to come into the present moment and to be guided to the next step, into the next place, into the next unfolding of what is possible. For some of you, this is as simple as they're giving me, I know a lot of this has come with words, but so I get visions too. So like they're giving me this vision and this feeling of like it's like you're in your car driving and you're mad because someone cut you off. Like even just dealing with something like that right there and allowing that energy to move through you and not attaching and having that mean something and having a story and going off on a whole tangent about it. Like that's an example of even something that does count in this moment to help you come into more of that inner peace. Like it's even the small things like that. It's allowing yourself the space to be able to They just keep circling here, like tune out the outside chatter, to tune out the outside like pools. Like they're showing like a puppet strings, like
Hmm.
the puppet strings on the outside, which is outside influences, people, culture, all these things is like the puppet master above you with the puppet strings. And so that's what's pulling your strings as you go along. Like, you don't need a puppet master. They're like, you don't need a puppet master. But some people have become really accustomed to and comfortable by having their strings pulled a certain way. And when a string is cut, they're like, well, how do I puppet? And it's not that those are the words that you're using. This is the visual that they're giving. They're not saying, this is like, they're not saying you're a puppet. Like, this is like the visual, right? It's like, well, if I don't have that string attached, like, how do I operate? I only know how to operate this way. And as each string is cut, we get used to, okay, this arm is free and this arm is still. So like, I understand what this feels like, but I'm still attached over here. And this is like, oh, I love this. They're like, even with this is the attachments of results, outcomes, expectations. Like this goes deeper than, what could be perceived of like, oh, media's puppeteering me or whatever. No, like this is like deep personal work and deep inner work with all these strings that are attached. It's like each one that you can cut free, you can come into more of a place of freedom to be able to more clearly and more efficiently take steps forward. Many, 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 many of you are looking for the fast route to get from here to here. And when they do this, I never know how to do it. They're like, the reader, it feels weird to me when it's like the reader says, like me, like they're talking about me. They're like, like when people are sitting in front of me and they come for a reading, right? Like there's this, they're like showing me this like hardcore, like gripping of needing an answer. Like, how do I get there? And they're reminding me, they're like, every answer they share is one of love and one that is supporting you on this journey. And it's like, how do I get there? Okay, well, you notice the attachments that you have. No, but how do I get there? Right? And they're like, it's like, this is the dance, right? Like even that is one step for some, where that's a step where letting go of that attachment to needing an answer in the way that you desire it or in the way you feel it should be presented, letting go of that and releasing that desire and that need for a certain answer to come through is a huge step in cutting off one of these strings. Huge step. Whereas for others, they've already cut off that string and there's other strings to release. So let me see if there's anything else they want to share about this, or if there's, we might be able to keep going if there's like another question you want to ask. So let me see if there's something else they want to share. Okay, so yeah, I'm feeling, I've not done this before. It's my first time doing this on a podcast like this. So if there's another question that you wanted to ask, that's more of like a collective type of question, kind of like for all, I feel like there's space to see what they have to say about that.
So what's coming to me seems to be about handling the structures as they crumble, as they start to fall, as they start to crack and crumble. And I think they've kind of addressed it with staying in peace. But is there anything more to speak to as we start to see and watch these what we thought of as forever systems, these systems that we believed would run forever, we start to see them collapse and crumble under their own weight. Is there a message for that?
Yeah, they're showing that like one of the most important things that we can do is to remember our divinity, is how they want to say it. Remember our divinity. And remember that we have more power than we realize, and that it's even more important. The first message they gave, right? Like it's even more important to remember and this is how they're saying it, to come back home into our bodies, into our souls, into our present moments, moment to come back home, because from this place of home, you can navigate things so much more clearer than in any other state. And so it's like, it's interesting because they're showing me so many different, so many different perspectives all at once, which is interesting because they're showing me the perspective of, the portion of humanity who is very triggered and anxious from hearing about certain crumbling. And so for them, they're showing like a lot of them want like more concrete step 1, 2, and 3 type of thing of like, how do I do this? How do I navigate? What do I do? Oh my God, where do I invest? How do I go? Do I sell my house? Do I not sell my house? Mm-hmm. And then they're showing me like another portion of humanity who's not at like, still there's some anxiety there, but it's not as triggered, and it's more like looking for outside people to tell like what to do. Like it's like tuning into different channels and YouTubes and like, okay, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And even a part of that too is showing like looking for validation. So something that you maybe are already feeling inside but unsure about it, and then looking for validation for others that you trust or that you come into to validate those things. And then they're showing like another segment of the population who has moved through a lot of this and who has really come into a place of more peace and have like released a lot of those puppet strings they were talking about. And it's interesting because in a way, it's the same advice for all 3 or even infinite categories. If you don't fall into one of those 3, is like the key things are grounding. Number 1, grounding, especially for those who have cut off a lot of the strings and they find themselves getting sucked into a narrative or whatever, or like getting anxious or fearful. It's continuing to ground and like come back into that place. And it's going to be a lot easier for those who have done a lot of the work, because someone at the other side of the spectrum, they're showing, is going to be like, grounding, how is this going to work? Because there's a lot more, how is this going to work questions with one group of people than those who have really come into a place of more trust with themselves and trust with intuition. So regardless, it's about grounding, celebrating, this is how they're going to say it, celebrating the triggers and celebrating the things that are coming up that are activating or causing anxiety or causing like these emotions, like celebrating this, because then it's like shining a light on the things, like shining a light on the strings that may still be attached. And then also, I think, how do they want me to say this? It's like, as often as possible for all groups, for everybody, practicing discernment of, okay, they want me to say it 2 ways. Practicing discernment for those who can hear that part of the message, practicing discernment, and practicing listening to your own advice is how they're going to say it. And another way to say that, I'm adding on this, another way to say that is like listening to your own intuition or your own intuitive hits and continuing to practice that and building up that muscle so that when you just know that whatever, this step is the right step or not the right step, or this person is the right person to listen to, or whatever that is, it's like that practice helps bring you back home.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to trust that landed for exactly where it needed to land, because it feels like a very big, nuanced, complex, yet so simple message that I've not delivered a message yet like that hits so many people with like different layers. So it was interesting. There must be multiple different places that people are at in their journey listening to this, or one version of the message. Like if I was giving the message to you, then maybe it would have been a little bit different, speaking into a different aspect of that versus all the people who are going to be listening.
No, a lot of that definitely resonated personally with me. The whole piece. I mean, I pulled a card this morning at yoga. It was the peaceful pond, like, making sure that you stay peaceful on the inside, no matter what is happening on the outside. And that's been probably the last week and a half has been a huge message that continues to come through for me. It's like finding the peace in the chaos that is happening on the planet.
And this is coming through as well. And I'm surprised it is, because this is not something I would usually like speak to, I guess. And it's not me. This is like a message coming through. Is they're showing me all of the horrible things that are happening in Israel. right? So they're showing me chills, and I feel it actually. I feel like I want to cry now. Like they're showing me that, and they're showing, that what's interesting about this is a, how do they want me to say this? Okay. So this is part of the practice where, yes, you can come to a peace inside, and they're not saying like, you can't be outraged about it. You can't be upset about it. You can't want to do something. That's fine. Those are all fine things. That has nothing to do with the anxiety and things they were talking about before. It's more about, and this is so nuanced, is like getting sucked into a narrative or getting sucked into a fear, like the world is going to end because this is happening. Like there are certain things that are not true about any situation that's taking place in the world. And so this is how they're saying it. Things are not always the way that they seem. There's always another deeper level. There's always another perspective. There's always another truth or series of truths that are in each experience that's happening in the world, regardless of how horrible or what else is going on. And so just reminding you, like reminding all of us, when things like Israel are taking place, we can, okay, so this is how they want to say it, like coming into the place inside first and then making actions from that place, right? So if part of your action is being an activist, it's coming from that place and not so much a reactive place where you're playing into the energies. Like it's coming more from like your soul, your inside, and it's coming out that way. Whatever that is, whatever version of that is, whether it's donating money or holding space or prayers or activating or speaking about it or whatever it is, if it's coming from that place, it is the right step for you. And don't allow yourself to be pressured by like society and media and all of these things that you need to go do this, that, or the third. It's coming from this place inside.
Right. Don't react to it from an emotional standpoint. It's like respond to it after going within, after, really sitting down and saying, okay, is this for me? Is this where I need to be spending my energy and sending my energy? Or is this, maybe something else? And I had channeled about Israel this morning as well. And basically what kind of came across was none of us know the karmic debt that anybody involved in this situation has or has built up or has any experience in. They have chosen to experience this reality from this perspective, and it was a choice that was predetermined before they showed up here. So it is, yes, it is frustrating and painful from an individualized perspective to see this happening to other people on the planet. But you can't know what that person, their past lives, their future lives, what lessons they have come here to learn. You don't know those. And without knowing them, you don't know whether this is for their highest good or it's not. And for most humans, it's very difficult to come to an understanding that the death of other humans could be in the highest good for that soul, for that person that is experiencing it from outside of the physical vessel. And that's what came through for me this morning. And I felt compelled to kind of share that. So
no, perfect timing to share.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect timing to share.
So yeah, that was wonderful. Anything else, or should we close the channel?
Yeah. This, at least for the purpose of this podcast, this feels complete. I'm still going to have the records open. They'll be assisting. And if they want to say anything, they will probably tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, hey. But as far as that, it feels complete.
I love that. And let's unpack just a little bit. So obviously staying in your peace, finding that calmness from within, and then discernment was another one that seemed to be an overarching theme. So can you speak to a little bit about discerning, again, as you start to tap into higher energies, discerning what is me, what is my future self, my parallel versions of myself, my angelic beings, the guides, whoever you're tapping into, whatever that energy is. How do you discern that from, something that may have been attached from, when you were a child, from an experience that you had coming through this life, and trying to discern what is me and what is not me?
All right. So I'll speak from my current space in this time and from my experience leading up to this space, because at some point in the future, I'm sure this would have evolved and it would have grown. A couple of things. I'm thinking back, even let's just say back to when I had my first Akashic record reading, like I was sharing. Discernment would have meant something very different to me then, right? Like, I don't even know if I would have resonated with the word discernment, right?
Right.
But I bring that up because I feel like part of this is doing the best that we know how to do in each and every moment, regardless of where we're at in our growth and our ascension and our spiritual journey, like owning the space that we're at. And so what Jeni from 10 years ago would have picked as discernment, right, is obviously very different than what Jeni would do today. So I want to just say that first, that
Right.
when I talk about what I'm going to talk about next, which is very nuanced with the way that it shows up for me, if this is not where you're at yet, then allow yourself to be where you are. And I'm going to say a couple of things that will support you in that. Because if you're trying to do what I'm doing and it's like too far, like you're going to be frustrated and like wondering why it's not working and whatnot.
Yeah.
So what I'll say next is that as much as you can practice trusting yourself and really trusting your intuition, those two tools will help you. And it seems to be what the Akashic Record Keepers have been leading me to really do in like the work that I've been doing in groups and one-on-one, because it's like, at least from my perspective of what they keep bringing you through, like that's such a foundational thing that allows us to trust the discernment or to trust the things. And so here's like the other layer to that. So when I'm getting ready to teach others to access the records. And I've had multiple conversations with people and they're like, they maybe did Laura Coase, went through her program or they heard it on a podcast or whatever. They learned how, they got some prayer, they got something, they learned how to open the records because that information is pretty readily available, right? Like you can pay for it, you can get it free. It's kind of like DIY, all good. But where people I feel get stuck is in, okay, I opened the records and I got these things, but I don't know if it was true. I don't know if it was my brain, was it the record keepers, was it, right? Like these things come in, like you said, is it the higher angels, is it myself, is it this? At some point, as you're growing in this journey, and of course, if you're further along in the journey, it's a slightly different conversation. So I'm speaking to more the beginning part of the journey is like at some point, you have to take that leap of faith and trust. So for example, me going through the Akashic Records training, I didn't know if it was my brain, my imagination, or whatever delivering the messages. At some point, I had to say, you know what? I have to trust this process and trust that I'm connecting and just go with it. Like I had to let go. Because I think sometimes when we're looking for these overly confirmations, sometimes we're blocking it because we're like, oh, and in some way I'm being dramatic here, but I feel like in some way it's like, oh my God, I'm expecting the Akashic Record Keepers to show up in front of me and like wave a flag and be like, I mean, it's just like the feelings that I have is very like subtle. It's a very subtle feeling that gets stronger and stronger, right? So at some point, right, if you're practicing listening to your higher self, your intuition, angels, guides, gods, universe, spirit, whatever it is that you're tuning into that's of your highest and best good, at some point you just have to trust and take that leap and be like, you know what? It's happening, right? Then from there, it's learning, like as you fill that up, you get nuanced into like, oh, this one feels like this. And that one feels like that. And that one feels like this. But you have more of a base of understanding. So complete side note, and I can't believe I'm about to say this publicly, but is like I've had the intuitive nudge to get into the records of my dogs. And so, or even communicate with the dog psychically. So there's the records piece and then there's the psychic piece. And I haven't done it yet because I have this nudge. And I was talking to another friend of mine who communicates with animals. And I was like, this has got to be the same. It literally, like if I know how to communicate with the records, I know how to work with my intuition, right? So then it's just a matter of learning how the animals speak or how the angels speak or how that comes through, because I would venture to say it's similar yet different, and not having any expectations to how it's coming through. Because like if it has to look the way that I channel when I'm in the records, or if it has to look the way that Joe channels, or the way that this famous person channels, like we're going to stop ourselves.
Right. Like you're not going to channel like Bashar does. You're not going to be this like free flowing channel that just has information flowing through them and the channel has taken over the physical vessel. Like most people are not going to be channeling that way. But I would say probably 80 to 90% of people are using their intuition either consciously or subconsciously or unconsciously. Like they are using intuition on their day-to-day life. And what has definitely helped me is just writing it down at the end of the day. It was like, okay, these three things were I was intuitive. I was led to make that decision. I went there and here's the outcome that happened. And this was a positive outcome. So knowing that feeling and then again, like bringing it into the conscious mind so that the conscious mind can say, okay, this was actually an experience that happened that was positive, that did
Mm-hmm.
provide me with a value. Like again, the ego is trying to keep you alive. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what your intuition is trying to do, but not through the five senses,
Right.
through, the external senses of our beingness.
When you said that, and that brought up something else that I wanted to share as it relates to intuition, when you're building your intuition, is that I think a lot of times what happens is people at the gate, like you said, they want to be, the person that's been practicing this for a long time. And especially they ask like really big things like, oh, should I invest in this whatever? Or should I buy this house? Or should I quit my job? Higher self, should I quit my job? Oh, I didn't get anything. It's not answering. The thing is like sometimes we just got to start with like the silly questions, right? The questions that don't matter anything. Like, do I wear this? Better to wear the pink shirt or the black shirt, right? And you just build up that. I did that. Like you build up that muscle, and it can be the little things. Then you celebrate the little things. Like I remember one time, since we travel, right? Like there was 2 grocery stores nearby, and I was like, I don't really care what grocery store. My logical mind will pick because this one's 2 miles and this one's 5 miles. But I was like, you know what? Let me do this intuition thing. So I was like, higher self is my highest best good to go to this grocery store. And I listened for my sign or symbol for yes or no or neutral. And then I asked for the other one. And I got to go to the other one, even though logically I would have gone to the closer one. So I was like, all right. The thing is, if you ask, you gotta follow through. It's gotta be on things you'll follow through on, right? If you're not gonna follow through, don't ask. Like higher self, should I get this burger? And you really want it? And it's like,
Yeah,
no,
you're going to
like
get it either way.
you
Yeah.
need to do things you'll actually follow through on so you can build that muscle. So I go to the other store. And for me, I get really excited when I see like deals at the store. So I go to this other store and it seemed like everything I wanted to buy was like on BOGO or on sale. And I was like, by yourself. This is great. Oh my God. Right. But it's like celebrating these little things that then helps us to build that muscle so that
Right.
when we are connecting, when we are channeling, when we're receiving bigger things, we can just trust that it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very important. And I think I want to say that right now is probably the most important time to be building that muscle because as we move into structures falling apart, chaos coming around the world, it is very important that you are in tune with your intuition, that you are in tune with the aspect of yourself that can see into the future and can see into the past and can see what is coming down the road. Because when you tune into that, when you're able to tune into that and make these I don't want to say life or death decisions, but these major decisions that all of us, each one of us is going to have to be experiencing. Okay, what do I tune into today? Like, what is my experience for today? Where am I going to find food or community or shelter or, any of these things that may become questions that we're all asking ourselves. If you can have that intuition now, then there's no question. Then you are actually living in that peace because you already know you're taken care of. You have the answers to all the questions that you'll ever come across because outside of, again, what you're tuning into doesn't experience time in a linear fashion. It experiences it as the totality of everything that has already happened and will ever happen. And that, again, that's what the Akashic Records are. That's what the angels are. That's what all of these higher dimensional beings are. They are seeing from outside time and space. They're seeing where you can and can't go. And that is what, right now, I think everybody should be really building that intuition, that feeling, that gut reaction, that however you kind of conceptualize that, because now is the time when there still is a calmness, a serenity that you can experience it in, because trying to learn this on the fly is going to be very difficult. It's going to be there's going to be too much pressure. And again, like you said, starting with the small things, like imagine your first intuition that you ask your higher self or your guides is, where can I find food today? Like that's a
Mhm.
pretty big ask for your higher self and your intuition to come through. And, the more that you have experienced that, the easier that it's going to be as you ask these questions and find the pathway that you are here to live.
Right. And it helps us to build that muscle of faith and trust that even the most illogical answers that come through are the ones that will lead us to, fruitful results.
Right.
That's what I'm really leaning into right now in so many ways. Like, how can I stand in the empty field by myself and hold the space for this thing that I'm creating or that I'm being, led to create, and call them in without going, oh God, no one's here. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. So that's my version of it. But like, even you listening, like, what is your version of that? Like, what is example with the food thing, right? If we go stick on that example, the family's going, yeah, but there was food over here the past 4 days. And you're like, yeah, but I'm telling you, if we go 10 miles down there,
Hmm.
there's going to be food or whatever. And it's like, no, but it was here, and
Right.
maybe there's a whole field of food. You know what this reminds me of? Someone told me a story when all the crap was going down with the pandemic and toilet paper was a shortage, which is really dumb. The person was telling me like that they like legit needed toilet paper, but obviously it wasn't available anywhere. And they had this intuitive nudge come through to like call I don't know, some kind of a warehouse place or something that
Right.
like they happened to have toilet paper and they sold her a case or something, like this one-off situation. And then she went, there was no chaos, there was no nothing. It was an unlikely
Right.
solution for something presented. So it's like you said, trusting that it will happen and not being like, I ain't calling that place. They don't have toilet paper. Well, I don't know. What if it's like you just
Yeah.
kind of have to you just got to do it. Like,
You just have, if you get that if you get that intuition, it's like, do it, try it.
yeah. And if they don't, then you can't put so much pressure on yourself that like, oh my God, it was so wrong. Like, what if that helped you to open up another door for something,
Right.
right? Like,
You met the right person at the right time to, maybe it wasn't toilet paper that you
right.
needed to go to that store for.
And I have another different story for this too, is when I was launching my first channeled group program. I was nervous, right? I was like, how are people going to show up? Is it going to be good? Like, I had all my human thoughts with it, right?
Hmm.
And so I was listening to those nudges, and my nudge would tell me to reach out to certain people. And I was like, oh, I don't want to be cheesy doing this, right? But I was like, well, and so I reach out and I'm like, hey, I had a nudge to reach out to you. Do you want to hear about this program? And they'd be like, yeah. And I wasn't attached to them joining or not joining. So that was a big key, right? I wasn't like, oh, I had a nudge. That means they're coming. And so I would send them, and I was just curious, like, well, what's going to happen? Are they going to join? And then for some people, what that nudge was it gave them the space to test their own intuition, because they were like, oh, I really want to do it. I really want to do it. And it was like, well, what does your intuition say?
Hmm.
And they'd be like, oh, now's not the time. I'm like, yep. So that's exactly what the nudge for was, to create the space for them to practice that thing, right? And for me
Right.
to hold space for it. So it wasn't about closing the deal.
Yeah.
It was about building a relationship and giving someone an opportunity to grow in a non-conventional way, essentially.
Exactly. And then when that nudge hits them, when they're like, oh, okay, now it is the time, like they're not going to go looking for anybody else. They're going to go right to you.
Right.
And it's a win-win-win. It's everybody wins in that situation.
I agree. I agree.
So excellent. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed getting into the Akashic Records and channeling and really getting out of my comfort zone as well. Cause
Mm.
I really typically don't share a lot of the channeled messages that I get. In the morning, I'm usually meditating. I'm bringing in information. I'm writing it down. I'm journaling. I'm doing all that stuff. And yeah, I'll take some of those broader ideas and I'll bring them into some of the shows. And usually it does have something to do with a show or something that's coming up. Maybe not that day, but the next day or 2 days later, I bring that information back. But really, sharing what I channeled this morning was a big step for me, and I appreciate you kind of bringing that out of me and allowing the space for me to do that.
Of course. And I'm glad you did. I'm glad you listened to the intuitive nudge, because I think it started before we even like pressed record, and then
Oh, for
here you
sure.
listened, right? Like you
Yeah,
listened.
beautiful. So if anybody's looking to get in touch with their Akashic Records, either have a reading or learn how to read their own, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I actually feel guided to say this first, is that since we were talking about the intuition and trusting yourself, I would say if you feel like we have a soul appointment, you feel guided, you resonate with me, there are two, I guess, three things that you could do right now. One, I will be running my 7 Weeks of Magic group experience again, and that was completely focused on assisting you to step into that trust and that intuition. And or, because I think that's going to be a prerequisite to learning how to open the Akashic Records for others, not for yourself. I think I'm going to have that be available to everybody because everybody can learn to open for themselves. But if you want to learn to open for other people, you're going to have some like base there. So those could be your next steps. And if that's like way too much and you're like, look, I just heard you on a podcast, I'm not ready for that step, then the best thing would be, I would say I hang out the most on Instagram at the Akashic Nomad. And then I have my own podcast called Soul Activations that's on my YouTube channel. And I share channel messages there. I go live twice a month and I do many readings. So it would be a great way to kind of like either show me that you're stalking me or come stalk me without me knowing. It's fun. Please, not in a creepy way, but like kind of like check out the vibe.
Good thing you're a nomad.
I know, that's true. So you can kind of like check out the vibe and see if I resonate with you and check out the messages. And if that's all that you come for, then I think that that's beautiful because you'll get exactly what you need.
Beautiful. Well, Jeni, I really appreciate you coming on, getting out of your comfort zone, getting me out of my comfort zone. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope to be talking to you again.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you again for listening to Changing the Channel with Joe Garner. If you enjoyed the show, please follow the podcast, hit the bell to know when a new show comes out, share with a friend, and rate us on whatever platform you're tuning in from. It helps get these messages out to more people to create the collective shift in reality we are here to experience. Make sure you interact with the Q&A and poll sections of the show so I can continue to provide content you enjoy. Finally, check out my website in the show notes to become a VIP of Changing the Channel and join the shift that is happening.